At highway speeds, the average text takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. That's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop texts, stopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a successful motivational speaker and trusted life coach, Nancy knows how you can live the life you want regardless of the challenges you face. Although she's legally blind, Nancy's mission is to inspire others to overcome obstacles and live life full out. Call in at 800-333-0001 to ask Nancy for advice on topics such as relationships, finances, business, health, and more. Just call 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari, and today we are going to be talking about stress. Nobody has stress, right? We're all just happy going through life, just floating, right? No, we all have stress of different kinds. And so today, during the show, I want you to bring those stresses to the table. What is stressing you out? What is having you feel burdened? What, keeping you up at night, having you feel weighted? And I know that's not exciting to talk about. You're like, Nancy, I came here to get motivation, not get more stressed out. Well, the thing is, in order to conquer a stress, in order to conquer a fear, a lot of times we have to face that. We have to recognize it, understand the root of it, why it's occurring. And so that's what I want us to explore today during the show. We're going to be taking your calls. Again, the number to call in is 800-333-0001, 800-333-0001. We'll also be having a very special guest coming up in our next segment who will also be sharing with us about his stressful journey with schizophrenia. So stand by for that. So again, stress is the topic of the day today. And really, truly, I want you to identify that stress, not so that you dwell on it all day, because we want to conquer it. You want to tell those stresses in your life, get out of my life. You don't have power over me. You aren't real. Now, some stresses may be real. If you're going through financial challenge, or you just had a breakup, or there's something heavy on your heart, again, that can be diffused with the right motivation. And that's what we want to give you today, that empowerment, those steps, those strategies so that you can thrive and live full out. We're going to go back to the phone lines. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. So tell us what's going on.
So recently I've been trying to cut down on eating sugary foods and soda and that kind of stuff because I'm starting to notice effects on my health, but I find it's kind of hard to control myself. So what do you think I should do?
Well, so is the payoff, so not eating sugar is to better your health? Is that to better your fitness health? Do you find that it makes you jittery? How does sugar affect your body? What are you trying to not let it do?
I mean, it's not that it really stops me from doing anything, I think, but it just as it stands, I find myself not being able to, I just noticed myself not being as physically fit, and, I'm worried about my blood pressure and stuff like that.
Well, and the reason why I asked that question is because without putting some intensity behind it, without having there be a cause, a result, you can't make change happen. So, for example, with sugar, let's say it does affect your weight, right? Then you want to surround yourself with what could be the result if you don't stop eating sugar, right? Sometimes I'll watch a show like The Biggest Loser on TV, and I'll recognize, I'll hear their stories of how they got there, and sometimes it's just eating the wrong foods. Sometimes it was a stressful time in their life, and they turned to food, or they gave up working out, or they were injured. You have to look at, if you don't give up sugar, what would the negative result be? And then don't let that just be in your head. You need to get it in your heart. So if you did not stop eating sugar, and let's say you were to gain 50 pounds, how would that make you feel?
Well, yeah, that definitely wouldn't be something that I'd like.
And let's say 50 might be extreme, maybe it's even 25, maybe it's 100. How would that change your life, right? You would not fit into any of your clothes. You would it might affect your ability to go out, it might affect your sleep, it might affect your ability to do certain activities. So we have to look at what could be the negative result if we don't give up that sugar, if we don't give up that relationship, if we don't give up that job. There's a lot of people in unhealthy jobs, unhealthy relationships. You got to look at what would happen if you don't give it up. Now, you could say you could cheat, right? You could have sugar every now and then, but right before you're about to have that sugar, have near and dear in your mind that end negative result. You don't want that.
I don't want that.
You don't want that. I mean, hopefully that's helpful. And what you want to do is you want to put together what that negative result would be, and then you want to translate that negative result into an emotion. So again, going back to our example about gaining 50 pounds, the emotion might be feeling uncomfortable, feeling unattractive. And then what does that make you feel? That makes you feel maybe worthless, maybe not attractive, not worthy. There's a lot of things that people could feel. So for you, that's going to be different. That's an extreme. But think about what your negative result would be if you keep eating sugar, and then put some emotion to that. If that negative result works out, how would that make you feel? And then right before you're going to have the sugar, remember that.
Yeah. So what would you say would be a good way to, be able to remember that kind of thing?
Great question. So I have certain triggers, certain things that I hold myself back from. Like, for example, you might choose to snap your fingers and let that be a reminder. You might choose to pinch your finger. You might choose to, when you're about to do that, get on your tippy toes. Let there be a physical action that you do to remind you. Now, some people will go as far to have that physical action be almost a little painful. Like, again, if you pinch your finger, it doesn't feel good, right? Mm-hmm. So that reaction will help you also stay in line. These are all little things that a lot of people do. I've learned a lot of tips over the years from stress experts. And so, again, you got to get it the negative result. You got to take that negative result and put an emotion behind it, and then you got to have that trigger.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good.
All right. Well, keep us posted. I know that you'll do great. Just stay away from the sugar. No more sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for calling in. Thank you. All right. We're going to go back to the. Thank you. We're going to go back to the phone lines. We have another caller. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show.
Oh, thank you.
Hello. Well, hi. Tell me what's going on. How can we help?
Hi. I just had a question. I have issues starting conversations. Initiating conversations is a bit of an issue for me, and I was wondering whether you had any advice to kind of get over that barrier for me.
That's a good question. And how fitting is it that the person who has difficulty communicating is calling into a radio show? Look at that.
Well, I figured it was a good first step.
What a first step. So here's the thing. Do you think what you have to say is of value?
Depends on what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, let's just say most things that you say, do you think they are valuable? Do you think they're worthy of other people hearing?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. Well, and that might be something you want to think about, but I would gather to say yes. Where I'm going with this is when you don't communicate with people, when you keep your thoughts, your fears, your ambitions inside you, you're not sharing that with others. Okay, what if everybody in your life did not confide in you about anything? What if nobody communicated with you about anything and everything was just surface talk? That wouldn't be enriching, right? That wouldn't be stimulating.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay? So what you want from other people, you also want to give back. So what you want to consider is, what do you have to give to other people? And that's going to be a different give depending on who you're talking to. You might be talking to a buddy, and, maybe you want to communicate about maybe a fear or a concern that another buddy would get, that they would identify with. Maybe if you're talking to your parents, maybe it's something that is kind of keep you up at night, something that you'd like to get some of their wisdom around because, they've probably been around and they've probably have encountered that same anxiety. By sharing with people what's going on in your life, you open yourself up to just a more enriching dialogue so that you can have deeper connections. Is that something you can do?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so thank you for calling in, and let us know how things go.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So both of those callers actually had great advice for us to take. For example, the question about sugar. Think about in your life, what is it that you want to give up? What is not serving you? What is giving you additional stress? Sometimes we self-sabotage ourselves. Let's say we want to work out or we want to lose weight, and we think, I'm just going to have a chip or two. Well, after you eat those chips, I promise you, half an hour after those chips, you're going to feel a little guilty. You don't have to do that. You don't have to feel guilty. You always want to think of the end result in mind. Same with our last caller, communication. It's big. It's so big. If you get nothing else from this show today in regards to stress, the best way to diffuse stress is to talk about it, is to seek resources. And, for me in my life, I have to turn to people all the time. I mean, I'm a very upbeat, positive person, but when I have a time where stress enters my body, you better believe it. I turn to one of my coaching friends and I say, okay, here's the situation. What do you think? Because I want it out of my body as soon as possible. Don't let stress linger. Don't let it hang out. You want to acknowledge it, turn to somebody who can help you diffuse it, and then set it free. We'll be coming right back after these commercials with our motivational guest. We'll be back.
Isn't this dinner party wonderful? Jeanette and Bill did so much planning, and the house looks great.
Well, it was almost canceled. Did you hear that Bill was really sick with the flu 2 weeks ago?
No, I had no idea. I've been so busy at work. But my coworker's toddler was in the hospital with flu, too. Is Bill okay?
It was pretty serious and aggravated his asthma. Bill got sick quickly with a high fever. Fortunately, Jeanette got him to the doctor right away. The doctor said it was flu and prescribed a medication that helped him get back on his feet.
I didn't know flu was so serious until I heard Bill say he felt like he'd been hit by a truck. He missed a big meeting at work.
Well, thank goodness Jeanette had gotten her flu shot. Because, she's expecting.
What? Oh, man.
I guess that was another thing you guys didn't know either.
A message from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi. I can't come to the phone right now because I'm abusing my children. Not just verbally, but physically. I'll get back to you.
If only child abuse was this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call Child Help at 1-800-4A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org. We've helped millions of people help millions of children. All calls are anonymous and confidential, so call 1-800-4A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org. Child Help. Trust your instincts. Brought to you by Child Help and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
In the world of fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty had 3 good fairies to protect her. But in our world, protecting the beauty of the forest is the responsibility of everyone.
Listen well, all of you.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans and can be prevented.
We'll all pitch in. If humans can do it, so can we.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Log on to SmokeyBear.com to find out what you can do. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. A professional motivational speaker, Nancy can help you overcome obstacles and start living full out. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari, and now we are going to turn our attention to our very special inspirational guest today, Maddie Salminen. Here's the thing. He's had this journey of life dealing with schizophrenia. And one of the things that excites me most about this interview today is that we can learn more about schizophrenia. What is it? How does it affect one's body who has this? And Maddie's story is very unique to himself, but it's also one that's a great example of those who are suffering from schizophrenia. So I'd very much like to welcome Maddie Solomon. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for joining us on the show here. So Maddie, I think the best place to start, because people hear the words, the term schizophrenia, but what is it? What is that condition?
Well, schizophrenia is a form of psychosis. It's a disorder that relates to personality and mental state that coincides with strange beliefs, and also strange beliefs and sometimes hallucinations, which can include hearing voices and things like that.
Well, and that's got to be not only frustrating and scary, but just, really perplexing. And I know for you, you didn't get diagnosed for several years, and you had to kind of deal with the voices and deal with the grandiose ideas in your mind. Can you take our audience back? Can you let us know when that first began for you?
Well, I first really started having radically different beliefs that related to the person I was at, well into my 22nd year. Like when I was 22, about 4 or 5 months after I turned 22, it was the summer of 2002, and I started believing I had a rat in my brain and that I'd been one of the great warriors of all time, and that there was a great deal of impending danger that I had to worry about, which my form of schizophrenia is paranoid-type schizophrenia, and a lot of my beliefs center around having a great deal of fear for my own well-being, or did anyway when I was still psychotic.
Mm-hmm. And these voices in your heads, these visions of who you were, did anybody know that you were going through this in your mind? Did anybody know about these visions, these ideas that were going through your brain?
Fully knew what was going on. People could tell that I was struggling very, very seriously, but even until the whole thing was resolved, I kept a great deal of my beliefs to myself. I told some mental health professionals on occasion some beliefs about having served in the military and things like that. But one of the primary beliefs which I held, which was that I believed I had a rat in my brain, I never told anyone that until after I realized it wasn't true. And that was mainly the reason I didn't tell people is oddly enough, is because I didn't want them to think I was crazy. I was somewhat fearful of having people understand what I thought was the real truth about myself. Some of my paranoia, I felt that if people understood my whole story, that the dangers of people coming to harm me and things like that would be greater.
And I'm just curious, somebody who may be showing signs of schizophrenia, maybe they haven't been diagnosed yet, or maybe in your early years, What were some of the, I guess, traits or things that you did? Did you communicate with people? Were you isolated? What was that like for you?
Well, I was very isolated by choice, and that's a very, very strong characteristic of many people who experience schizophrenia, is that they impose isolation on themselves. And I just wasn't functioning as a normal, independent, early to mid 20s through early 30s adult, and it to an extent that it became like a real arduous task for me to lead the life I was leading.
Well, you had shared with me that even one of the voices told you to punch a cop, and that would give you some glory. Can you share with us about that?
Well, my primary belief that related to the paranoia I held was that if I didn't spend the rest of my life in jail, I'd be the most tortured man in history. And so in 2006, I assaulted a police officer to get myself put in jail. And I thought for a while I'd be safe. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life behind bars after that event because of a conversation I believed I had with someone who held power over the judicial system in the state of Vermont where I live. And then when I was released out of jail in 2007, after a few months in jail, I was then diagnosed with schizophrenia, and shortly thereafter I attempted suicide because still of the paranoia that people would come to harm me.
It was, and first of all, I want to just say again, thank you for being so open with your story, because this is really a world that is so important for us to know. I mean, you know, there's people that walk among us every day who are challenged with this that we may not know, or we may hear them, and maybe it's somebody walking on the street talking to themselves, and we really got to understand this condition more. After you learned about your diagnosis and you started to learn that these ideas were not real, what was that process like for you? Because you had held on to these and believed in these so much. How do you just let them go?
Well, that's, I mean, it was, like I said, it was a very, very long and difficult journey to get to the point to where I could let them go. And it was I almost look at it almost like an avalanche, like something broke. The hold it had on me by the time that I started learning about schizophrenia, and when then I just realized immediately that I didn't have a rat in my brain and nobody was going to torture me. It was, I mean, if you've seen images like of an avalanche where this big slab of snow just breaks off the mountainside, it was like that. And it was at the same time as it was freeing, it was very revelatory, because like all of a sudden I had insight into things that I experienced firsthand that really fueled an attempt that I made at becoming a writer, and that served as the catalyst for life change. So that moment of revelation, when I stepped out of madness, I was able to carry that into life transformation and kind of ride a wave into being a functioning, independent, and healthy adult again. It took time. It took a few years after I realized that I didn't have a rat in my brain and all those other radical beliefs for me to put the pieces of my life back together. But writing was definitely the cornerstone of that transformation process.
Well, it's interesting because writing and journaling can be so helpful in having us recognize, these events in our life. I mean, you actually thought you were in the military. You actually thought you were married to a woman, and then you realized you weren't. Tell us about that, because when you were talking to that woman and you realized, we're not married.
Yeah, I believed I was in the military, and one time I mean, several times while I was at one of the group homes I was in, I contacted the military to try and get records of my service and failed. And those were the moments that helped me when I educated myself about schizophrenia to see that I didn't have a rat in my brain. And one of the biggest ones was when I met the woman at a fair, kind of as like a maple syrup festival in northern Vermont, nearby where I was living at the time. And I met up with her. She had her kids with her, and this is a woman I thought I was married to throughout many lifetimes, in fact, rather than just for a few years in this lifetime. And after seeing her and spending time with her, I realized that she and I had never been married, and that was a major turning point that allowed for me to let go of all the madness that I was clinging to, and I let go of it all at the point when I decided to educate myself on schizophrenia.
Well, yeah, because one of the biggest fears that you had was that you would be killed if you were not in jail. And again, that was not true either.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, in terms of schizophrenia, if somebody is listening today, and we might pursue this into the next segment, just really briefly, though, you know, what are some of the signs of somebody who has schizophrenia?
Well, you know, that's a hard question to answer in many respects. It's if somebody is talking about beliefs they hold that are radically different than anything that people encounter in their lifetime, everyday people, then that's a very good sign of somebody that's going through extreme states, as they call it. However, I would not venture to say that would necessarily be schizophrenia. There's other
conditions that could
go along with like madness that, other than schizophrenia, that have common grounds with schizophrenia. So I wouldn't like to say necessarily how to look for it.
Hey, Maddie, we have to go to a commercial break, but I thank you for that distinction. That's very good. Let's continue this conversation right after this commercial break. We'll be right back.
Hi, professional skateboarder Tony Hawk here with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck to remind you to get moving every day.
Because when you get moving an hour a day,
you'll have the energy to skate through anything.
Nice play on words, Doc.
That's how I roll, Bugs. So whether you like to work the half pipe,
now that's catching air,
kick the soccer ball around, or dance in your room,
just move it your way.
For an hour a day.
The way you like to move, as long as you're moving.
Carve out some time every day and get active. Because it's time to do a 180 on what you think exercise is.
Because it can be whatever you want it to be. So be a player.
Be a player.
Get up and play an hour a day, Doc. Check out how to be a player at letsmove.gov.
Head online to get tips on great ways to get moving every day.
At www.letsmove.gov. Let's hear that one more time, Doc. That's www.letsmove.gov. A message from the Ad Council and HHS.
I want to change some things. I want the moms where I live to have childcare they can trust.
I want to make sure my little brother and his friends have a safe place to play.
I want to help more kids graduate from high school.
Help more hardworking families learn how to budget and save.
I want more of my neighbors to have access to health care.
Want to make a difference? There are so many ways you can. Help create opportunities for everyone in your community.
I want to change what I see around here.
United Way is creating real, lasting change where you live by focusing on the building blocks of a better life: education, income, and health.
I mean, I just want to see more smiles on my sidewalks.
Reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. For more, visit United Way at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a trusted life coach, Nancy will help you overcome setbacks and embrace all life has to offer. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari. Thank you for joining us. We are going to continue our conversation today. We're talking about stress. That's the big thought of the day, the big theme. However, talking to our guest currently here, Maddie Solomon, we're learning about schizophrenia, and he's sharing with us his journey. And Maddie, I want to welcome you back to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Hi. So, thank you for sharing with us about the voices that you heard and all the different experiences that you had leading up to your diagnosis. But I want to switch gears here for a little bit. When given a diagnosis of any kind, for me, I remember the day that I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, and today I'm legally blind. But for you, it was schizophrenia. Where did you go next? What happens next in that recovery process?
Well, I feel like my recovery process didn't begin. Well, it began long before I was even diagnosed in a certain sense, in that I learned to live with the adversity I'd been given. That began when I first started having radically different beliefs and paranoia and things like that. But the second phase of my recovery process really didn't begin till well after my diagnosis, but it was when that, I had that realization that I didn't have a rat in my brain, and I started to believe that I could, lead a normal life like many other people do, and that kind of, for me, that was very, very painstaking in a certain sense, that I just put a tremendous amount of effort into the life I led, but at the same time, it was a very exhilarating rush in that I saw, immediately I got so much responses from people that they thought everything I was doing was courageous, and I got a lot of great feedback from people who I realized cared more about me than I knew at first.
What is the protocol, or how does one manage schizophrenia in terms of medication or therapy, or did you go into an institution for a period of time? What was that recovery like?
Well, medication can be good in some instances. Some people, it causes a huge amount of side effects, including excessive weight gain, and there's cognitive dulling and other such things. And therapy can help as well. Otherwise, people with mental illnesses are the same as everybody else. The things that help you function well as a human being are the same as anybody, someone with schizophrenia. Exercise is good. Anything that's intellectually stimulating and socially stimulating, and maybe even spiritually stimulating if you're a religious person. All those things that give meaning to your life and help you experience the wholeness of yourself and your community and your beliefs, all that is true for people that don't have mental illnesses. With people that do have mental illnesses, it's still true. It's just a little bit more accentuated. When they're not functioning at their best, whether it be getting exercise and things like that, if they're off track with maintaining their wellness, the differences that makes in a person is just more pronounced in someone that it has the added challenges of, say, schizophrenia or maybe bipolar or depression.
What growth or therapy or healing came for you? What's the distinction between a psych ward versus a group home?
Well, in a psychiatric hospital, it's very confining, somewhat traumatizing, and it's it's like being isolated to the furthest extent that you can be in this society, even beyond being in a correctional facility, a jail, or a prison. And then a group home, it's still somewhat limiting, but I had some really good experiences in the group homes that I was in. One group home I was in, I was told at that time by my psychiatrist that exercise was one of the best things for mental health, and I very quickly went about getting up to being able to do a 100-mile bike ride in a day, and continued to do that for a few years, which gave me a great deal of freedom, which I otherwise wouldn't have had, and that carried me through a great deal of difficulties that I was experiencing.
I bet. And I'm just curious, because you're living with this, even today. It's your lifetime journey, but what are your thoughts on the stigma of mental health, or psych wards, or anything related to that? How can we who are not dealing with such a mental illness, how can we better view that differently?
The stigma of mental illness is a very, very difficult question or difficult issue to broach. And I think being aware that mental illness isn't all in all just a hindrance to a person. It can be a great way for a person to transform themselves and better understand their own purpose in life. Many of the things that are considered symptoms of mental illness are also characteristics of spiritual awakening in almost all religious traditions, which include isolation, and there's even a term that I understand as being applicable both to many circumstances of mental illness and very many spiritual rites in all religions. It's called the dark night of the soul, and I identify very strongly with this term, the dark night of the soul, which I can describe as being a time of tremendous spiritual or emotional desolation that leads to a great deal of growth and awakening thereafter. And that's understanding that one point, that through suffering and through time spent in solitude, a person can arrive at a point, if the conditions, the environment are lend themselves to self-discovery, that then it can lead to a great deal of growth thereafter, and can actually be an asset to that person to have greater purpose in life than they might otherwise.
Well, that is a very interesting way to look at it, and that does give all of us, more insight as to, just the positive that it can have amongst all the stress that comes with it. For somebody listening today who is dealing with mental illness, or, even more so probably they're scared, they're fearful of, might they have a mental illness, what would you say to them in terms of pushing through that fear to get that diagnosis or get that help?
For somebody that's experiencing mental illness, and just as words of advice to I would say, find things that you love doing, hold on to them, find something that you can hope for as a future, and work towards that. One thing I picked up on, I actually watch a lot of motivational speaking videos on YouTube, and one person says that when you follow a dream, even if at a certain point you come to a point where that dream's not going to be in your future, you then get to build yourself up as a person to the point where you can then decide to do something else and be that much more successful in your endeavors to do that other thing. And writing, and was that other thing, I think, for me, that I built myself up to the point where I could really pick up skills and learning and knowledge about how to write. And the amount of success I had with that is what fueled my ability to stick it out and push through a lot of the challenges that I faced.
Well, and your writing has been helpful. I know that's opened up a lot of doors for you in terms of, processing everything. I'm just curious, though, just on a daily, everyday basis, a day in the life of Maddie, like how do you manage this? I mean, I know that you write and all of that, but do you still have the same fears, the same concerns, maybe parts of depression, or have you found a way to manage that, or do those thoughts still creep in?
I feel like I'm probably close to like 91, 92 or 93% of the way to just completely being as free from any signs of schizophrenia or any type of malady that I could be. And my daily life revolves around, being healthy, being intellectually and socially engaged with the people that I consider friends. I play a lot of chess. A good day for me is to go to the coffee shop where me and my friends hang out and play as many as 6 games of chess that day. And I stay physically active and I read a lot, and I like to hike and things like that. And
well, all of those things that you're sharing with us help to diffuse that stress, and help to get you to that healthy place. And, I want to just thank you very much for being on our show today. You're such a light, really, and I'm just so proud of you and all your growth. And thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And everybody, check out more about Maddie online. Thank you so much. We'll be coming right back after this commercial break.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
You remember that ball game we went to a couple years ago?
Sure.
And how you didn't have enough cash for 2 hot dogs, so you walked with me on your shoulders until we found an ATM? And then when we got back to our seats, we never saw the hot dog guy again.
Well, I don't remember all that.
Yeah, that was an awesome game.
You never know which moments will be the ones they'll remember forever, so take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 1-877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Medical mistakes claim tens of thousands of lives every year. The healthcare community is working on it, but you can help. When you communicate with your doctor, when you ask more questions, you reduce your risk of suffering a medical mistake. Doctors can't answer if you don't ask. Help reduce your risk. Questions are the answer. Learn the 10 questions you must ask. Visit www.ahrq.gov. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Ad Council.
I'm getting a catcher's mitt.
I'm getting ice skates. I'm getting a devastating flood.
Adults are generous. We're even giving kids global warming, but we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
There are many sounds in your daily life. Ones that make you smile. Ones that help you relax. And there are some sounds that can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you critical information about emergencies in your area. With updates from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is President Barack Obama. In the story of America, the greatest chapters are moments of challenge, when we see people serving their country and one another. Volunteers who step forward into hospital corridors and church basements, along levees and fire lines. And the next chapter is yours to help write. Sign up to volunteer at usaservice.org. That's usaservice.org. Let's renew America together.
A message from Renew America Together, brought to you by the Ad Council.
We all have the ability to manage the stress in our life. And when I say manage, the great thing about that is you do have control. You do have the ability to put a plan of action in place, to seek the resources that you need to let those stresses diffuse, to let them go away. If you are dealing with a stress that's overcoming, hopeless, makes you feel as though you're just drowning in fear, well, the thing is always trust yourself. Know that you will never let yourself fail. You can tell that stress to go away. Here's to you living full out.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a certified life coach, Nancy can help you to overcome challenges and start living full out. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari, and we are now back to taking your calls in this segment. So the number to call in is 800-333-0001. And again, we're talking about stress today. And even the word stress, who likes that, right? It's just one of those buzzwords that we hear all the time, but it doesn't feel good on the body. It doesn't even feel good to say it. But it's really important to know that stress is not a lifetime sentence. It's not as though the stress that you're under is going to be there forever and ever. And I think that one of the things that is so important to realize, like if you look at our last guest, Maddie, dealing with schizophrenia, I mean, how stressful is that, hearing all those voices in your head and thinking these grandiose thoughts that aren't real. But to see him take control of his life, to see him work through the stress of that, and now he's, 8% there to being 100% free of that, that's inspiring. That's inspiring to me. When we have all these callers that call into the show each week and they share with us about what's heavy on their hearts or, keeping them up at night, to know that they have the ability to ask for help and get support and take control of diffusing that stress, that's what it's about. So please feel encouraged that the first part is acknowledging. The first part is recognizing what the stress is and then putting together an action plan to get rid of that stress. We're going to go back to the phone lines. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for calling. What's going on?
I just wanted to kind of ask about how to avoid letting anxiety and stress get in the way of productivity, because I'm a college student and, I'm taking 15 units and sometimes it gets really stressful, but I notice that when I'm overwhelmed, I'm even less motivated to try and get my work done. So I just kind of wanted your advice on that.
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for asking. The thing is the biggest thing is to realize what does motivate you. What gets you up in the morning?
I guess for me, I'm just motivated to make a difference in someone else's day. Like, I'm studying psychology, so I want to be a therapist when I'm older. So I guess just knowing that I'll be able to make a difference in someone else's day or life is kind of what I feel like my purpose is.
Well, and so now you want to take it one step further. Do you have a vision of yourself? Like, can you picture yourself as a therapist?
Yeah.
Sitting
I really
across
can.
from your client? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the friend that all my friends come to me with their problems, and I just really like listening to others and kind of being a shoulder to cry on. So, but sometimes I'm even, I'm overwhelmed. So I want to kind of know how I can still keep with what I'm doing without letting my stress get in the way of it?
Well, and that's a great question. So I have two thoughts for you. I'm glad that you are that source of strength for so many. And when life gets overwhelming, the rub or the responsibility of being that source of strength and light for so many is that you do have to kind of go through the fire with them, right? When they come to you with their stresses, that stress lands on you. And then the next person comes to you and it layers on you and it layers on you. And then you got your own stresses, right? And that's where the overwhelm comes from. So here's what I've done, because I coach people every week. And I have coaches that I turn to. You want to find that person in your life. It may be a family member or a friend, or what I would try to urge you to do is find somebody else within maybe the same major as you, that can be your coach, your therapist, because it's going to be really important for you to be on the other side of the table. The best way to coach, the best way to be a therapist is to have gone through that process for yourself. That's why when people come to me and they're like, oh, should I go to therapy or should I get coaching? Yeah, do it. It is such an exciting process. Have you ever done coaching or therapy?
Yeah, I've done therapy before and everything, and it's really helpful. I'm totally, a firm believer in asking for help.
So what have you learned about yourself and how you can best manage your stress? What have you learned?
I guess it's best for me to manage my stress. I guess it's different for everyone, but for me, it's helpful for me to kind of like center myself, meditate, get in touch with that. I'm very spiritual, so kind of get in touch with that higher self within me. Just kind of know that if I center myself and stay balanced, I can get through whatever difficult situation I'm in.
Well, and centering yourself is in the mind. It takes you to that higher place where you can be relaxed, where you can be clear in that visionary process. But don't forget, life is about just being real, about being, human. And so a good cry, a good shout in the pillow, I think, I know you're laughing, but I'm serious about this. When life gets overwhelming, I'm not saying go out on tangent. Everybody listening today, don't get angry. I'm not, don't do anything physically abusive to yourself or someone else. But sometimes you just have to let the raw emotions of life happen. But give yourself a time frame around that. So if you get overwhelmed, let yourself feel that overwhelm, whether it be a cry, whether it be frustrated, but put a time parameter around it. You know what? I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. Or if you're having a day where everything is just building up, give yourself a day. Just say, you know what? I'm gonna like put everything aside for a night, and I'm just gonna do something that's gonna take care of me. And that might be meditation. That might be watching a movie that makes you happy. It might be tapping into music. The thing about being productive is that when you're in the zone, when you are depleted of all these stresses, that's when you can be your most productive. And on days that you don't have that freeing feeling, that's when you want to turn to that vision for yourself. Because even though you're tired, even though you're stressed, even though you're overwhelmed, it is your life's purpose to keep stepping forward so that you can be that therapist and that strength for others.
Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Just chunk it down a little bit, put everything in. I think sometimes compartmentalizing is okay. Just kind of look at things in different buckets. One bucket is how do I handle the in the moment frustration, the cry, the yelling in the pillow, the I got to run around the block and get this out of my body, fast run, whatever that may be. Then the other bucket is, okay, I'm super tired. I'm taking so many classes. I'm just overwhelmed. But somebody out there's life is going to be improved. Somebody's going to be saved because I hung in there. I kept strong. So, I know you're going to do great things. I'm so excited for you because as a life coach, and I was a psychologist major as well, I'm so excited. You're going to have so much fun making a difference in people's world.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So she brings up a great point. how to be productive when we're stressed. It's tough. You have to find a way to clear the clutter in order to be productive. Now, you're never going to clear all the clutter, right? There's always going to be something every day that's going to be a stressor. So just know that that's coming. Just know it's going to happen. Every day something stressful is going to happen. That's life. But just as the stressful life moments happen, so do the joys. And when we look at our show today and we look at all the callers that have called in and Maddie's interview about schizophrenia and managing that and dealing with that over the years, the common thread is that things are going to pop up. That's why people call into the show. That's why we have those guests. Things are going to happen in our life that are going to be those curveballs, that are going to be those stumbling blocks. But you absolutely have the ability to manage that stress, to limit that stress. I'm not going to say it's going to go away, but you have the control and the ability to let it affect your life in a huge way, or whether you let it just affect your life in a little way. And, I share with you a personal note on that. For me, being visually impaired, you better believe it. When I am trying to read something or look at something or, even, take something and put it through a really small hole, that can be very frustrating because I can't see it. But what I've learned is that it doesn't help me. It doesn't serve me to get frustrated. What does help me is to say, you know what, Nancy? This is maybe something you can't do on your own. I'm going to ask somebody for help. Or, Nancy, you know what? I'm going to get some resources around this. I'm going to see how I can troubleshoot this. Being productive is awesome because you can be productive by troubleshooting those stresses. And so while we kind of close up today's show, I hope over the course of today you've thought about what that stressor is in your life. And if it's something that you can nip in the bud today, then do that. If it's something that's long-term, then just know that it's going to be a progression. But whether it's a financial stress, which I get a lot of clients that are going through that, or whether it's a relationship crisis or breakup or health concern or, anything really, anything that's a long-term stress, it can still be managed, it can still be handled. Just like Maddie, our inspirational guest, was so perfect to demonstrate in his own life. And next week, when we're coming back, taking your calls, I really want you to embrace this show as a way for you to get advice, for you to get motivation. If you'd like to check out more of our shows, go to livingfullout.com. You can also listen live there each week, or give us a call at 310-909-7800, and I'm at extension 1. Here's to you living full out. Have a great day.